to get us all out of here early. That's my goal. I have a very, very, very brief agenda, if I can find it. Nope, that's not the right one. I have way too many files open. So we're going to do this the easy way, and I'm going to do it this way. So hopefully you guys can see it. We're going to keep this pretty informal. As you guys are probably aware, we haven't fully gotten everything signed off with DOE yet, so we'll give an award status update. There's a update on the things that have happened and kind of a sense of where we think it's going to go from here. And then also some next steps. There's some non-deliverable related action items that will need to be taken care of as kind of the transition from getting the award finalized to getting the project started, and then talk a little bit about Q1 deliverables and also Q2 and 3 deliverables. Kevin, does that pretty well cover everything you wanted to hit on also?
Yeah, take it away, and I can just chime in with a few. I think I had 3 points I wanted to hit on quickly, but
okay. Yeah, I figured the three of us would just tag team. So I don't have much to report on the award status update, so I'll give what I can, and then Kevin, if you want to jump in. But hopefully you all saw the SOPO that I sent around with this appointment. It is not the absolute final one. We did have to send it back to DOE with just some minor edits. There were a few typos and then a couple places where the language and the narrative part didn't match the language or the numbering in the table at the end. So we just kind of cleaned that up and sent it back to them. If they just accept everything and don't add anything new, then it pretty much will be the final. But we don't know for sure. Kevin and I both felt, though, it was close enough along that we could share it as the near final version of the SOPO. And I didn't put the Q&A in there, but once we get done with the updates, if you had a chance to look at and you have any specific questions, we definitely have some time to talk about that. The final paperwork, unless something has happened since the last time you emailed me, Kevin, the final paperwork has not been signed off on quite yet. I was a little nervous about what was going to happen with DOE, with the continuing resolution expiring tomorrow, but we now have a breather, so that's not quite freaking me out the way it was a week ago. But hopefully we can get this done. Technically, based on our award letter, the start date is still October 1st, which, as you know, we are well past. And so I've had some initial conversations with Sean and Kevin that we won't try before the paperwork's finalized to do anything about the date, just so we can get it done. But I think there's some value in, once we get the paperwork done, going back to DOE and requesting a modification of the start date to reflect the fact that it took so long to get this in place. And probably a January 1st start date is going to make sense since we're headed into the holidays right now. And we can talk a little bit more about it a little later. The Q1 deliverables don't cause me the heartburn so much as the Q2 and the Q3, where I think if we lose 3 months of work towards those, it might be a little challenging. But we'll cross that bridge once we get the final paperwork from signed off on DOE. Kevin, anything else that you have that's you can share with the group?
Yeah, I just had a few quick updates. So yeah, in terms of the contract, the way that it'll work, apparently, DOE gave us the full award, and it's a conditioned award, so that was kind of like the pre-award. So we'll actually get the full award as a modification, which removes the conditional, there are the conditions for the actual award. So we're just waiting on technically modification 1 to the full award. We sent in what I think is the final version of everything last week. We'll see. DOE has so many of these that the feedback is slow, as we said last time we met. So nothing has changed there. In terms of the Q1 deliverables, we have the project management plan. We're actually going to need 2 of these because, you know, there are almost 2 projects with a DOE project. There's the reporting side of things, and then there's the actual content. So I think, Leslie, you'll be helping lead the internal project management plan, or PMP, and then NBI will help. We'll pull together the reporting project management plan, or the one that goes to DOE. So hopefully we can get that done as soon as the SOPO is finalized. And then the steering committee we need to begin setting that up before the end of the first quarter.
Yeah. And we can, yeah, I've got some more on both of those, but I thought before we got into the Q1s that we might want to talk about kind of so we're still waiting on, and this is new to me. So it's the first modification to the award to make it the actual award, and not just the pre-award is where we're at. Am I hearing that correctly, Kevin?
Yeah, so we have the funds are obligated. We have the award letter, and then that award letter will receive a modification to it. It's just the way they are now doing this, I guess. So
okay,
when we receive modification 1, that will remove the conditions and will actually be, yeah, on the way. But the final point I wanted to make was that we are in the project period. I mean, the start date was October 1st. So Leslie, you and Sean can discuss the details of, yeah, I don't know what all it would involve to move the start date back in terms of billing, but we are in the project period now, or the period of performance. So please do record this meeting. And the last update I wanted to give you, the third point here, is that we're going to provide all subrecipients and cost share providers with a template. So we have to provide DOE with quarterly reports. We also have a quarterly check-in meeting with our DOE. I forget their official title. I think it's Christina Volpe is our contact at DOE. So as a part of our quarterly reporting requirements, we do have to include some of the details from you, and we'll need some details. We'll provide a template, I think, on what you need for reporting, but do record the hours, and we will definitely a minimum need, you know, staff name, hourly rate as reported in the budget, or your cost share letter, and then the description of the task, which would just be the SOPO number and the hours involved. So please do start recording that, and we'll get a template to you shortly.
So
and that's
Kevin,
all for me.
So that's the backup to not moving the start date to January 1st. Is let's go ahead and track hours now, just in case we need to report on that. But like I said, what Sean and I had talked about is just going ahead and saying, look, you took, you know, at this point, I don't think they're going to get this finalized the week of Thanksgiving. So, you know, 2 out of the first 3 months, and requesting the date be modified. But if somehow that doesn't fly with them, then we need to be keeping a tabs on what you're doing now, because if we don't move the start date, this time counts. Is that a good synopsis?
Oh, actually, I think a better way to think about it is not moving the start date, but adjusting the schedule. So we still have the October 1st start date, but then we adjust the schedule on when deliverables are due and when things happen to reflect.
Okay. So we'll need to talk more about this, but it's all kind of moot till we get the final paperwork.
That's the and
Oh, Sean, you're breaking up.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was done.
Okay. So it sounds like hopefully we'll get this all finalized from DOE before our December call, and then maybe we can talk more about like what the timing piece of it means.
absolutely. And we will absolutely be sending a template as soon as we can. There's some new specific requirements for bill funding, and the Recce funding is through bill. So we're trying to sort out just to make sure we don't miss anything on the template. So that's why there's a little bit of a hold up there.
Okay. So, and the template will be for the cost share.
Cost share and subrecipients.
Will it be the same template for everybody?
It'll be close. There'll be two different ones, but yeah, mostly
Okay.
just a change in the phrasing.
Okay. And then the other thing that also, even before kind of Q1 deliverables, is that once the award's finalized, then MBI then has to subcontract with all the subrecipients.
Yeah. So, but yes, we have the contracting stuff underway. So we got the drafts out to everyone. We're working on the MOU with Tucson. So LISC, ICC, and Tucson will have subcontracts or an MOU.
Okay. And you've sent templates out to all the subrecipients?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Of the contract,
so,
yeah.
A world of paperwork, folks. That's kind of why it's been a little bit of a interesting start to this. So going back to the Q1 deliverables, the first two are project management plan and also the steering committee. So as Kevin noted, DOE's got a template for a very, very, very basic project management plan, but we are going to do a more detailed and comprehensive one, I guess I could say. Given what was asked of us in the application and also the page limitation, there wasn't an opportunity to go into a lot of detail on each of the technical partners' roles. So none of the jurisdictions are taking any of the funding. We're providing the match. And then we've got a number of subrecipients that will be, in addition to MBI, doing the technical work on our behalf. And so we need to work with all of them on that more detailed project management plan, just to make sure roles, responsibilities are really clear, and who's involved and to what extent in each of the tasks and the milestones in the SOPO. So we're starting to have some initial conversations around that. We have a meeting the first week of December, and I'm hoping that in our January stakeholder meeting or steering committee meeting, we will have that draft PMP, and we can talk through it as a group and make sure it works, makes sense for everybody. Great. And then the steering committee. So we decided on the last call that this group is going to be the steering committee, at least for right now, which means you are collectively the subrecipients that we've clearly identified in the contract. There may be some additional subrecipients. There will be some additional subrecipients that we'll bring into this group as that contracting is done. Then also the state energy offices, as well as the jurisdictional partners. So that is this group here. And this will be the group that's the steering committee. I sent out a link to a spreadsheet where I basically listed all the contacts of everyone who you've identified in some form or fashion for this project. And so let me stop sharing because I think I'm confusing everybody. I'm going to throw that back in the link. Please do indicate who you want to have as your primary on the steering committee, as a backup, who on that list doesn't need to be on the steering committee. You can add people, you can remove people. what I started with is just what I had from each of the organizations to start with. All the subrecipients are on one, because they're in some ways smaller teams than some of the jurisdictions. But please do fill that out. We do have to provide a roster to DOE of who's on the steering committee. We want to have good representation from this group. I'm not going to go kicking anyone off these calls, but I'm not going to reflect anyone on the roster to DOE without someone from that organization saying it's me, or it's this person, or it's these people. So I do need you to weigh in to let me know who you want me to put on the roster that we will be providing to DOE as the steering committee. I also asked in that email whether this time, which is usually it'll be usually the third Thursday of the month, unless like this month it conflicts with a holiday, and then I'll move it to the second. And at this time, and I didn't get any negative feedback. So I am assuming that is good for everyone. I mean, is there anyone who has a major problem with this time frame? Because otherwise I'm going to go ahead and extend the meetings out through the end of next year. So we'll have them in everybody's calendars. Right, I'm not hearing anything. So I will extend, these will be the steering committee meetings. I will rename them so that they're clearer, and not just our monthly coordination meeting. And so this will be that group, and we will, I'm starting to, as we start to work through the PMPs, think about what we might want to be covering at each of these. And so we're starting to develop out a little bit more in advance an agenda. It'll probably be a little fluid because that's how these projects go. We'll send documents out to you outside of that, but this is going to provide an opportunity for some discussion, for decision making if we need to. Yes, Jim, it's 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time all the way through the year, which is also called Arizona time. So no daylight savings time. All right. So we've got covered award status, subcontracting, reporting templates. You'll get those from MBI. Kevin, have you guys put any thought into a shared document site for, speaking of documents we'll be sharing with folks?
No, it's definitely something we need to set up as soon as possible, but we're ideally hoping to have documents live on MBI's external SharePoint, but we continue to have issues with that, especially with government email addresses. So I think SharePoint in general has issues. So we can add that as the second thing on our list to talk about, Leslie.
Yeah. And I've had the same experience with SharePoint, is it being problematic. So it might be worth just doing a Dropbox or something that we can, it's a little easier to use. It's not great to have two different, places, but I'm already having to do stuff with US Green Building Council in a Dropbox. And so that might be the easier way to go. All right, so we'll get that set up. And then not a whole lot to share, but I wanted to, so the Q1 deliverables are the project management plan and the steering committee. The quarter 2 and 3 deliverables, we start to get into the website. So I had Jonathan, I see you have an interest in being part of that conversation. I'm hoping we're going to bring our PIO from the city. I'm hoping to get Nature Conservancy involved in that as well. I think I saw Anne on here with a loom. Anne, is that something you might be interested in participating
Supporting on the website development?
Thinking through like what we want to do for so we have to do a project website, but we also, Jonathan's piece really revolves around kind of a long-standing website. And so we wanted to think through it initially and go, okay, what could we do that would serve as a project website during the process, but then could evolve into this longer term site for the project? What might that look like? And just start kind of, fleshing out at least the framework for design.
Sure, we can be supportive of that. And to the extent that you need design support, we also have in-house designers as well.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. And Terry, I see you guys want to be involved in that too. I was going to ask, does anyone else website discussion? All right, I'll start with you guys. I'll keep prompting. We'll have things to share as we kind of put something together. And then another couple of the initial deliverables, Q2 and Q3, just to flag for people. So we do need to figure out an equity advisory panel and an engagement plan. LISC has kindly offered to take a first stab at fleshing those two things out for all of us. So Stella, I saw you had an interest particularly with the equity advisory panel. If there are others who want to weigh in, I mean, it's certainly something we'll bring back to the broader group. But if anyone has an interest in kind of being some of the quick internal thinking on that as LISC needs, let me know. Feel free to just throw it in the chat. That's good as well.
Leslie, Stella, who are you with? Just so.
Stella's with ICC, the International Code Council. Sorry.
No, I'm not as familiar with everyone's name.
We're all going to have to get used to a lot of acronyms with this project, I think. Okay. And then final one that I just want to flag for people, and Anne, I'm so glad you're here, is the survey work that you guys are going to be really heavily involved with. You guys are the experts in kind of pulling them together and doing them, but I want to make sure that there is broad support from this group, particularly those of you who are building officials and building experts, or maybe workforce development, to really help through what we want to ask, who we want to ask, so that we get the right information and get the right foundation for this project. We're not that one we've got a little more time for, but again, I want you guys to be thinking about volunteering to kind of help support Anne and her team and figuring those out as well. Those are some of the pieces that are coming up quick in that that next 3 to 6 months in early next year that we want to be thinking about. And do you have any thoughts or anything you want to just throw out to the group at this point?
Well, I would say the sooner we can establish the folks who want to play an advisory role in the development of our methodology and instruments is probably the way that I would frame it, to provide guidance, the better, certainly, because those processes can be long depending on how many folks we have weighing in, and it would be great to get a jump on that and start planning in the new year. And then certainly we'd be happy to sort of shepherd that along. The only other question I would have for you, Leslie, and perhaps also Kevin, is the extent to which you'd like us to, or anyone really, in these sort of sub roles, to communicate back out to the larger group, and just establishing expectations on reporting that back out to the broader team.
Yeah, we can certainly talk about that. I'd like to offer to take as much of that off, and if that helps, and be the conduit for a lot of the conversation. That's kind of how I see my role. But if it's ever better for you to have direct communication, that's also, you know, we can talk more about it, but I'll try to lessen that load on you as much as possible. And the same true for the other subrecipients is I'm happy to be a conduit with the broader team.
That's perfect. Great.
So I think this conversation has really adequately highlighted that, yes, we're getting there, but there's still a lot of pieces we still need to figure out. Getting into the weeds a little bit on the project management plan, on the engagement plan, and the advisory groups. So this initial conversation is hopefully going to be a lot of what this group is helping shape. And once we get all of the award paperwork and the contracting in place and we figure out the start date, this will all start to shift into a little more formal structure. We wanted to start having these conversations with you all as early as possible, just so you knew kind of where things were and how they were coming along. So I know that's a lot. Any questions, anything concerning to people in terms of where we are? I am going to send my spreadsheet back out. Thank you to those of you who started filling in who you want to be on your teams. If you look a little farther over on that spreadsheet, in addition to like whether their individuals are going to be on the steering committee or not, there's also questions about some of these initial working groups. So the project website, the equity advisory panel, the technical advisory group, community engagement plan. I will add a survey column to that for you, Anne. And then please also look at that as well as a way to just put in there, hey, here's where I would like to participate and maybe being part of a smaller working group to help inform some of these specific deliverables. And if we can get, so Kevin, if we do not modify the start date, then we need to give a roster of the steering committee by the end of this year.
Correct.
So please, 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 I have enough. I've got about, between primaries and backups, we've got about 15 people. So it's not like there's no one on there, but it's a lot fewer organizations that I'd like to see. So please do indicate who you want formally recognized as your steering committee member and backup or backups. It can be any number of people. As I said earlier, feel free to add people to the list. I just gave you back what I had in terms of contacts for your organizations from earlier phases of this project. And please do let us know what kind of working groups you want to be on. Some of that stuff won't actually start to roll out until early January, particularly with the holidays and with the paperwork still pending and the need to get the project management plan. But we just want to get you guys thinking about it and thinking about where you want to plug in. So.
Yeah. And thanks again to everyone for your patience in getting this started. And Tucson, LISC, and ICC, thank you for patience with all the back and forth. I think all of us probably have a little fatigue with the paperwork, but so it goes.
Yeah.
And I think modifying the start date, I haven't talked to Sean about this, but I think that will probably be more effort than it's worth. So I think, as Sean said, we would want to maybe negotiate with DOE some of the like Q2 deliverables, but we only need to provide the steering committee membership, and it doesn't need to be finalized membership. Like, it doesn't need to be the complete list, but if we want more membership, that makes sense. And we also need to provide them with the DOE formatted project management plan, which is my responsibility, and that is just a restatement of the SOPO. So we're just waiting on the final version of the SOPO, and then we can get that off to them. So I think we are on track, despite the major delay. We're on track to finish up the Q1 deliverables by the end of December and really start in January.
So you're clear from DOE that they only want their very templated version of the PMP by the end of this year.
Yes, I think some of the required deliverables that needed to be included as actual deliverables in our SOPO was the PMP in Q1, and then I think it's Q3 where we have participation in the national cohort.
Okay.
So those things were added in by DOE.
And I think this highlights one of the really important things for us to keep in mind, and NBI's role in this, which is that, DOE wants what they want. And so there's the whole part of project management that is about just fulfilling DOE requirements. But those aren't necessarily what the project needs for success. And so there will be a certain amount of doing some things in parallel where NBI will need to kind of create the DOE version of deliverables and milestones, reports for things that are really about meeting DOE's requirements. And I think one of the things that we've seen from them so far is they want what they want, not necessarily what the project needs. And so even with this project management plan, I think if we gave them a more fleshed out, robust project management plan that's the sort that we need for a successful project, they would probably come back to us and say, yeah, can you eliminate all the extra detail? We just need this stuff on the SOPO.
Yeah, they absolutely would. They would.
So I think it's useful for us to keep in mind that these kind of are two parallel paths, and part of NBI's role is to navigate that.
Yes, that's my job. A lot of the
What-
material I will be sort of reformatting and making sure it, fits into the DOE requirements. So
And
Yeah.
and that's for two reasons. One is, we want to make sure that we don't jeopardize our funding and we're meeting all of the requirements of DOE. But we also don't want to burden the project team with DOE requirements, which are sometimes just headache paperwork. So we want to insulate the project team from that as much as possible. We can't insulate you entirely. We're going to need stuff for reports, so we can't completely avoid it, but we want to avoid it as much as possible. And so think of that as one of the roles that NBI plays in this project.
Yeah. And I think one thing that would be helpful as these things come up, Sean and Kevin, is just being really clear in those instances where this is the DOE version we need to do. And we understand that there may be like a project version or something that's a little more detailed that supplements it. Because, you guys are in the weeds on this and fairly frequent communication with DOE, and some of that stuff isn't quite as transparent to me, who has even more regular communication with you guys than everybody else on the
Sure.
team, and just kind of understanding those differences would be, I think, helpful.
yeah, the big ones will be the project management plan and then the 2 go, no-go decision points, where DOE reviews our material and decides whether or not to continue funding for the next budget period. And those have specific formatting requirements and a lot of reporting stuff. So once we get the project management plan in, other than the quarterly reports, and everyone has, I think, or NBI has 30 days after the close of the quarter to get the reports in. So we'll need invoices and all of the reporting stuff in mid-January. But yeah, other than that, I think we've got 18 months until we need the next sort of DOE formatted pile of paperwork to get in.
Okay. And it would be helpful if you could have that PMP template from DOE before the group meets on the 4th, just so we can kind of see like what it is that you need to submit and then how much more extensive our internal one needs to be. And part of the reason I'm raising that is, as I was trying to think through the PMP, I took the hopefully final version of the SOPO and went back to the technical volume, the narrative part of the application, where we had identified what tasks different organizations we're going to be part of, but those tasks are different now. And the organizations are a little different now. And I'm realizing there was even gaps in what we submitted there. So even though what we're giving to DOE is kind of a simplified template version, I think we need to be really careful in making sure they understand how extensive the role is of various organizations across all these pieces, and not just be super simplified about like, well, this one's going to be NBI, this one's going to be ICC, but really there's multiple team members, and it's a little bit more collaborative than I think the impression was given in the initial application. Again, space limitation, but so we can do that. That'd be good.
Great. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, okay, Shay joined and was asking about the working groups. Shay, they're not really formal working groups as much as we identified a number of the early deliverables. So we have deliverables every 3 months. We have to have at least one thing that we submit every 3 months. And so some of the early ones, like between now and end of June, where we really want to make sure we've got good involvement from this group. And so we had identified like the website, because it's not just a project website, but it's going to live past the actual grant funding, thinking through what that looks like. We need to do an engagement plan, which I said earlier, LISC is really offered to take the lead on that because they've got a lot of expertise there. Figuring out the equity advisory panel, what the core function and tasks, what kind of desired composition. A LISC is again on that, but that's one I see you really also being a good person to advise on. Thinking through the technical advisory groups, Kevin and Sean, I want to talk to you more about going about that. And then the surveys, and thinking through what the surveys are going to look like. So I'll add the survey column in that spreadsheet, but then I'll also try to think about like a couple sentences for each one, what we're looking for, and send that back out. So hopefully folks, by our next meeting, please try to fill that in. But I'll commit to getting that back out to you with a little more language on the working groups before the end of the week, because then I'm off for a little over a week, which will be nice. I haven't had a week off in a long time. So before we jump off, like I said, I want to give you back time. Did anyone get a chance to look through the SOPO and have any questions, have any thoughts? You're a quiet bunch. I'm gonna have to remember to refill my tea or water before I start these meetings if you're just gonna make me do all the talking. All right. Well, if no questions, please do skim through the SOPO. It's not super long, with the multi-page table at the end, which is just a summary of the narrative. It's barely over 9 pages. So
skip to the milestone table at the end if you haven't already looked at it. That's my one piece of advice. Start there. The summary helps, and then you can go read through the actual narrative format.
Yeah. So, and we'll have opportunity on the next one too if you've got more questions. But yeah, let's hopefully December we can we can say, hey, we're started, make sure everyone's got like the forms they need, everything in place, start putting together those working groups, at least identify who's on them, and then hit the ground running in January. Christy, you've got a question.
Hi, Leslie. Hi, everybody. Christy with Sweep. For the working groups, are you looking for us to participate on multiple or to pick one? Do you have a preference?
Whatever interests you. So the constraints here is, we want this to meet everybody's needs. At the same time, we got to get it done. So we're going to do it one way or the other. The more we can get, you folks engaged in helping and giving your thought, a lot more about a lot of these things than I do. I am not a building code person. I am not a technical expert. I'm happy to facilitate. I'm happy to coordinate, but I'm really relying on you all to be the experts and help inform these things and make sure they work for your organizations and your jurisdictions. I mean, this is something we're sharing in terms of the resources and the things that we're developing. But beyond that, participate where you're interested, participate where your capacity allows. And it's just the jurisdictions that committed to a certain number of hours that might want to factor that in terms of, well, I didn't do as much the last 2 months, so maybe I need to find some time and participate a little bit more on a working group or something. But we're not setting a floor of participation that you have to meet. And we welcome you helping with every last part of this project, if you're willing.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. I will send out the recording for this. I will send out the revised spreadsheet. Kevin, you're going to try to get the templates out to folks for reporting, get the MOU template prior to our meeting with DOE. Am I missing anything else before I goodbye?
You and I had a few other things, like setting up the file sharing platform.
Okay, we can tackle that in just a meeting with us. All right. Well, have a wonderful holiday, everyone. I know we're still a week out. Oh, I see. Some folks are having trouble accessing the spreadsheet. All right, let me see what I need to do to figure that out. I tried to put it in a place where I could make it available to anyone, but apparently that did not work. So let me try it again. Worst case scenario, I will just attach it to the email when I send it out. And if it's not so much information that if I have to consolidate everybody's individuals, it's going to kill me. So I'll do that as a backup. And Kevin, we need to expedite this conversation about file sharing so I don't have to do this anymore.
All right.
All right, everyone. Have a wonderful holiday next weekend, and we'll talk in December.
Enjoy your week off.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks. Thanks, Leslie.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.